Welcome back to Founders in the Field, the show where we go behind the scenes with agency leaders, consultants, and creative founders to show you how they're building, scaling, and staying sane in the trenches. I'm your host, Stefan Bradley, and today's guest is Ryan Kerrison, partner and executive creative director at Flatout, a creative agency specializing in motorsport and automotive brand partnerships. How you doing, Ryan?
Good, nice to meet you. Thank you for the intro, Stefan.
No problem. Let's dive straight in. For people who don't know your story, take us right back to the beginning, what sparked your journey, and bring us up to you partnering with Flatout.
Yeah, great. So obviously, I grew up in the UK, south of London, and I'd always, when I was younger, did a lot of go-karting. Did a lot of motorsports. Went through university, still did go-karting. Was into kind of single seaters at that point, and then was playing a lot of sport. Went to university in the UK, carried that on, and ultimately got an opportunity to move to the US to work with Porsche. So did that, took it across, went up to Atlanta, and worked with them, filming a lot of commercial content. Basically, I'd always been interested in filming. My university degree was in economics and maths, very different to the creative field I kind of find myself in now. But oddly enough, it kind of comes together, and that's kind of a common trend, I think, with any creative that I've noticed throughout my career is it's a very much a connecting the dots theme that I have. So whether it's from economics, affecting interest rates, how that affects inflation, etc., all the way down the chain to driving, racing a car, changing differentials, brake balance, those kind of things. How everything has a knock-on effect in terms of balance through to a campaign, which is we'll pitch a certain client this and all that will interest this client. There's an overlap with this other client. We can put these two brands together and amplify the noise. A saying that I quite like, especially recently, has been if you can't make hits, make noise. So if there's one thing you're working on that maybe the brand is small, they haven't got a lot of funding for something, it's like, okay, well, we can't maybe convert on everything we're doing with this campaign. We need more resources for it, but we can make a lot of noise. So let's make a lot of noise, and then from that noise, we attract a lot more people. So those are the themes I've kind of realised and kind of when I've had these discussions looking back at my career. But so moving to the US, obviously then with Porsche, there's a lot of time between in the garage and a lot of downtime you get when you're working with a race team, etc. I would film a lot of content. I'd film a lot of things, more for myself really. Then I started cutting it together and made it into short little videos. Porsche liked them, Porsche liked running them, and off the back of that I started my own production company. So I then moved to New York, started my own production company, built that up over 6 years, and was acquired by an agency, a big agency in the US that was like an entertainment agency. They serviced every major Hollywood studio, TV studios, etc. Had like 26 offices across the US, and my role was running the production division. So the agency had 13 divisions. I was number 12, and I reported to the CEO once a month. But I had a small team, like 5 people with me, that I came across to the agency, and the agency was very every head of division was responsible for their own P&L. So once a month reported to the CEO, and we had targets to meet, etc. But at the same time, there was a lot of emphasis on collaborating across platforms, across different areas. So we'd try and work with digital or experiential, would try and work with us, or publicity and promotions, for example. So the first year I was there, the first 9 months, I joined in 1st of March. Oh no, I'm sorry, 18th of March. I joined in the middle of March of 2013, and I joined them then. And that first year, I was pretty much working with as many divisions as I could to try and consolidate my recognition of who we are as a company and what we do, and kind of like, okay, build me into your proposals with the studios, because the way the agency worked is they had relationships with all the major studios. At the start of the year, the studios would say, here's our film slate throughout the year, and they could back into that their planned revenue. Whereas with video production, you can't plan anything. It's very disconcerting for people in that world. Because like, what's your revenue like in a couple of months? Like, I have no idea, but I'm confident. But for the first 9 months, the goal for me was to embed myself in the agency, make myself very visible, and if they hired us for a certain job, we'd knock it out of the park. And it wasn't the kind of work that was, that I loved doing. stuff. I had a great team of a director that worked closely beside me, a great shooting editor, another editor that was phenomenal, and a lot of them went to film school and did a lot of professional stuff, and then to covering red carpets, B-roll to be uploaded for the newswire by 3 a.m. isn't really why they went to film school. Obviously, you start somewhere, and usually the margins for that for us were pretty low. It would be like $3,000 we'd get for that kind of project. We told last minute, and we'd have to go and do it, and then all we can really do, honestly, is mess it up. So because we kept, if the team that are working with the film company for that launch, or that movie, that red carpet event, are deciding to now say, hey, use our guys instead of using the company, this other people we've been using the whole time. They're kind of sticking their neck out for us, and we can't, and we're given a specific set of briefs to get done. So we have to, so really we're just delivering what the other company did. We're just keeping it in-house for the agency, and then basically there's more cost efficiencies pass on to the client. So, the biggest risk, obviously, if it doesn't go well, it damages the other division's relationship with the client. All those factors are not positive factors. They're all things that just we took them on and we did them, but after that first year, and we had no problems, which is good. But after that first year, I went through all of our financials, and we did something. I think over 160 odd jobs in the year, projects in the year, and our average revenue I think was just under $4,000 per project, which isn't enough for us to keep going. We had our targets, but you then have a decision to make whether it's you scale by volume or value.
Yeah.
We believed in what we did. We often, every shoot we had, if we had the budget, we'd buy equipment rather than rent. Typically we had a core base of post-production equipment for editing. We had a core camera systems we used, but then we'd rent lenses, we'd rent lights, the expensive stuff that that then would elevate that project. But if necessary, which happened a few times, I get a call on a Sunday evening saying, "Can you film in Brooklyn tomorrow at 6 a.m?" And if we're a regular production company, that we're like, well, we can't. The rental house is open at 9, so no. But we had the equipment, so it's just like, yep, we'll do it. It was a case of just, yep, whatever it was, we'll do it, and we'll get there. Just say we need one camera and like bring a second person, bring GoPros, because we had them in the office. They're there. Why not use them?
Yeah, sure.
So we started to over deliver. So that was a lot of the foundation work, and then we in the start of the year, the next year, 2014, I was like, okay, well, we've established ourselves pretty well. Let's push it a bit further. So we started doing broadened our scope a little bit, pitched some more projects on our own. And that year we did a few, I think about 120 projects, and it went up to about maybe $8,000 per project. So it was an upward trend, but I was like, okay, now we're capable of a lot. Like in the first year we couldn't invest that much. So we're like, okay, now we're going to really push. So I remember sitting down with the CEO and the CFO at the start of the year in 2015 and being like, okay, I'm not going to say no to projects, but I'm going to price them high. So if I get a call from a different division saying, can you do this? I'll say $12,000. And I'll say the budget's 3. I was like, 12. They'd say, once or twice they'd say, and then it's a lot of profit for us, obviously, and we suck it up and do it. But most of the time, they'd say no. So the first 3 months of 2015 were a bit nerve-wracking. What I've found is, from going back over all the data being at the agency and then at my own production company the years before that, I had all my data in a spreadsheet. This kind of ties into this is where the creative meets kind of the economics and that side of it. It's like I looked at all the data, and whenever we had a really busy month, 3 months later we'd have a drop of revenue because I was, we're busy on projects. I wouldn't be going out much. I wouldn't be networking at all. And then we had a really quiet month. I'd be, every night I'd go out and network with people at events. And 3 months after that, boost of revenue. And it literally tracked it back, I think, over 12 years, and it was 3 months every single time. And it just drove home the fact that you can't predict with production. All you can do is produce a good quality, have a good approach. My approach has always been, within reason, never say no to the client. Say, hey, look, we'll look into it, because the worst case scenario is we can do it. It's just going to cost more money. So we've worked with a big, I won't name them, but a big hair product company, and we shot a commercial for them, and it was a day in the life type commercial, and we go through storyboards with them. There's a lot of committees you go through to get the thing done, and even the day before the shoot, I did the shoot with the talent with the stills camera, so we could update the storyboard with what the actual shoot looked like the day before the actual shoot, which is a bit daft really, but that's what they wanted. It was like a morning, you know, getting her hair ready for the morning, and it was getting her hair ready in a taxi for a lunch, and it was getting ready for a fashion show in the evening. Everyone approved it. So the company L'Oreal, screw it, L'Oreal, and screw it, why not? They won't mind. And they and then we shot the thing, and they're obviously on set. They're seeing every shot. They're like, great. And then I think the first review is a storyboard cut, which is a long cut, because I like to show a client, okay, this is the storyboard cut. Obviously, we're targeting a 30-second video here, but here's a 3-minute thing. And these are all our best shots. This is what we have to play with. Any feedback, you can say, hey, I like this shot. Let's move this here. And it makes that they're not asking questions like, oh, did we get a shot like this? Or people that weren't there. It just makes it's more transparent. It's just like much more efficient. And someone came back and said, oh, could we switch the shot at lunchtime to the one in the evening? You know, where she's changing her hair in the taxi. Could you have the fashion show and the evening one change? I was like, well, no, you know, we shot that at daytime and that one's at night time, so we can't switch that. I said, we can reshoot it, obviously. You know, and they pushed back a couple of times. Like, well, obviously, I'd love to, but it's going to be a reshoot. You know, there's certain edits we could do, and that's where you push back on the client enough. But you do try and give solutions. Like, well, you know, if you like, we can do a pickup shot. We can go and film for half a day, but never say no to them. So, you know, and we'd have that. And that was something I had to instill into a lot of people that work with me as well. Because a lot of people's instinct I found in business in general is, if they're working on a project and there's a slight unknown or a question mark, they'll push back. And they'll push it back onto the client. So we had a client in Vegas that wanted a bunch of still shots of different landmarks in Vegas in the video, and they sent us over some images. And obviously, what they'd done, and they don't know, it's not their fault, but they went to like Google Images, typed in what whatever it may be, the Wynn Hotel, and then from that they would drag and drop that into a folder. But they're dragging and dropping a thumbnail, so it's like tiny. So the editor that was working at the time was like, got the files. He's like, I can't work with this. It's just tiny. So he's writing the client back saying these bigger images. I was like, whoa, stop! You know what they want? Go get them the bigger files. Just get the big images. Just solve the problem for them. Be value add. And it's little things like that. And then you go back to them and say, hey, look, the images you sent over were too small. So we found alternatives that are quite similar. Any of them you don't like or want changed, let us know. But you know, and if 2 are changed out of 15, great news, right? Because we're adding value. So and then that. So that was a good kind of ethos I kind of ran with, and the other part of it also as we kind of grew was, you know, I had a great staff, and it was like, look, you're brilliant at your job, go do it. I'm not going to bother you at all. If you need me, I'm there for anything. But otherwise, I'm not going to check in and you're not going to ask how you're going. Just do your thing. I trust you. And you know, we did a 10-part series for Discovery, where we all in post production, and the guy that was running the edit was like a 28-year-old kid, but he worked with me for like 5 or 6 years. I didn't watch 1 second of that whole series. My name was on it as post-production coordinator, but I didn't watch one because I trusted him. And I said, you do your job. And you know, by doing that, I gave him the freedom, and he grew from that. But I was there for him if he needed it any second. I'd solve any problem, I'd jump on it, I'd put the fire out, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So those are kind of good that, you know, things got into it. But then, so this year I said, okay, going for value over volume. I said to the CEOs, we're going to go for big projects. We did a lot of spec work because there wasn't a lot of work coming in because we obviously we'd say no to things, and we changed the dynamic of the work. So we did film some stuff on spec, which was like higher end stuff. Put it on our website, made a big presence on our website of content, and then 3 months in, we got our first kind of big break, which was that post production job, which gave us a lot of bandwidth to like work on other projects, give us a lot of income, revenue to play with, and from there it blew up massively. We just had a big project, and and then my confidence to the roof. I would just go into a meeting without preparation, just go in and just say, this is what we do, here's the work we do you want us to do it for you, yes or no? And they would just say, we'd love that, it's great. So we did our Victoria's Secret fashion show for Swarovski, and that was a great one because the head of PR and marketing for Swarovski, who hired us for that, we delivered I think 15 video assets, which you have to shoot within a 45-minute window at Victoria's Secret's offices in New York when they did the model fitting, and then you have the show itself the night, you're there kind of filming backstage, and you have to create all this content for Swarovski to run out in the week between the filming of the show and when it's launched on TV. So everything's under embargo until then. But you have the biggest thing is most of the content comes from that 45-minute session in Victoria's Secret's offices, which is fluorescent lights, music's playing, You have CBS, they're filming. You have, you know, Women's Wear Daily magazines. You have other magazines there. You have the creative directors of Victoria's Secret there, and everyone's chatting. And you're like the film crew for Swarovski. You're like the bottom of the barrel, you know, and you have a limited window to get the shots you need. So we kind of planned it like a military operation. It was like, okay, 4 of us are going in. I had a really good photographer who's phenomenal. I was like, you know what you have to do your thing. You know, and we had 2 cinematographers there, and we got slow motion cameras. We zoomed everything in slow motion. So we had like the crystals on the end of the dress. Like we filmed a really close up shot of them just as she walked, like on the floor, which looked really nice. And I would go around and do a lot of interviews, and I had like a DJI Osmo, which basically was the end of our drone, our big drone we had. I had the Osmo, so I was going around with that. So I was asking them questions, and I was getting interesting shots as bonus stuff. But we filmed so much content over that time that it, you know, we had so much to play with. They loved it. So we delivered that stuff, and Victoria's Secret loved it so much that when we got to London for the show, for the behind the scenes, and nothing had been released obviously because it's under embargo. All the press put in a certain area of the O2, which was in London, a certain pen, and then the agency that are like the event running agents, they come over and say, okay, we'll take you 2, come over here, you can go interview the models you need to interview. You have a half an hour, and then we'll bring you back to the press pen. But they came over to us and said, okay, you're first. Sharon wants to talk to you first. And I was like, who's Sharon? Who's Sharon? My shorts, they walk us in there, and they say, oh, Sharon's over there. I said, and then they walked away. I said, don't you have to follow us around? I said, no. They said you can stay here for as long as you want. So we were just in there for like 4 hours, which was great because we just got to shop different things. Anyway, Sharon came over and I said, nice to meet you. She's like, very nice to meet you. And we had a camera ready, and I said, I'll ask you a few questions. She's like, yeah. And I had like a half cup of tea in a polystyrene cup that I was drinking, and she was like waiting for her cup of tea. And I said, do you want some of mine? Just kind of a joke kind of thing. Half drunk cup of tea. And she's like, she loved it, and no, it's fine. And then she got hers, and then I'm about a foot away from her interviewing her because it's quite a loud room, so the camera has to be quite close to her for the mic. I say to her, introduce yourself, say who you are, what you're doing here, etc. And she's like, I'm Sharon so-and-so, I'm CEO of Victoria's Secret. And I'm like, I'm a foot away from her, and I can't react like this is a surprise. But at the same time, I was just offered like a half a cup of drunk tea, and I just said, can you introduce yourself and tell me, you know, what you're doing here? It's like, oh, sorry, you're the CEO of Victoria's Secret, my mistake. That's why you're here. You know, but the interview went well, and she was like, we wanted to speak to you first because all the content you've delivered is phenomenal. We love the content you've delivered. And then at the end of it all, and we had like Kendall Jenner was there and stuff, and I'd walk around, and you know, I've always had a mentality of as long as you're polite about things and you'll have an awareness of people's privacy, of when not to bother them, and when, you know, when they may be open to questions, which is another theme that I'll come back to in a second, which happened later in my career. I'll go over and chat to them because the worst thing that happens is they say no. You know, they're not going to be rude or anything. So, and if they are rude, it doesn't matter. If you don't try, you don't get, right? So I said, hi Kendall, I had the little gimbal. She's like, what's that? And she took it and she turned it around, did like a selfie, and she walked around with it and filmed a lot of content. So like, and so Swarovski was just like, oh, that's amazing. How did you get that? I just went over to her and she took it. And then that was it. And she had it for like 30 minutes. I was like, and it's got my phone, it's filming on my cell phone, I think. It was filming on my phone. So I was like, she's got my phone for half an hour, and she's got a bunch of selfies she took on my phone. And I was just like, okay, go ahead, it's all yours. Have it yourself. So we delivered all that content. It was 15 video assets in the end, and then like something like 200 stills. And the PR person at Victoria's Secret, the PR person at Swarovski and Victoria's Secret there were no changes, not one change to anything. So I created a website on our site which had like a review page with the password, and we had everything kind of under review at the top. Everything that was signed off would be a link to download at the bottom, so you could copy and paste that into press. So they always knew they could just log onto that website, see where things are, and when something was signed off, it would go straight down to a download link. And then the PR person, this is the biggest thing, the PR person at Swarovski said to me, like last year, I was doing all the interviews, I was asking the interview questions, I was reviewing the footage, I was in the edit with the editors. She said that I didn't do anything this year at all, and she signed us up for the next year before the end of that year before. So by the end of December, we'd already been signed up for the next year. And we did that relationship for 4 years, which was great. And it was really just that ethos of just like, okay, I know what they want. Let's go get it in the polite way, and take the weight off the client. So we did that, and then obviously the content looked good. We pushed that stuff, and then we got the NFL as a client. We were doing stuff for Six to Rent a Car with drones, which came about just randomly. We bought a brand new drone, and we had a bit of extra money that month. We'd hit our target, I think, by like the 10th of July. So the director, friend of mine, who's like a really close friend, I was like, should we just go to LA just for a few days or a week and take the drone? Let's give the drone a proper test. Because in New York City, you can't really test it that well. Let's go to New York, test it out. So I go to Vegas, test it out. So we go to LA, we rent a car from Six Rent a Car, like a BMW, and then we drive through Death Valley with the drone. And he's driving the car, and I'm figuring out how to do it in the smoothest way possible, because any acceleration or deceleration with the drone is a cut in the film. As good as the gimbal is, you notice it. So we're working out that the car's the variable. So he's just calling out to like 52 miles an hour, and he's just on the cruise control going plus and minus, and I'm keeping the throttle the same on the drone. And we ended up shooting like a 45 or I think maybe it was a minute 15-second video. We got to Vegas, we edited the video that night, drove back to Santa Monica, returned the car, and I said to the lady who checked us down, look what we did with your car. And she was like, oh, that's incredible. Got her manager over, got us in touch with Six USA. The following week we then flew down to Fort Lauderdale, met with the PR team in the US for Six USA, and they offered us a contract of 10 videos from a guy. We had the CMO from Germany on the phone in the conference room, and he was like, great, let's do it, and we'll do more of these. So it was like they were just launching in America. It was like Explore America with our cars, and it was just literally the two of us, their car, and like we did the Everglades, stuff like that. So we picked these very iconic American places. But Death Valley was great because it's such a vast, coming from the UK, going somewhere like Death Valley where you're driving in that and you see the mountains in the distance, they never get closer. There's nothing in between you, I think, and the guy that took me, the director friend, he was Australian. I don't think we spoke for the first hour driving in there. We were just like in awe.
Yeah,
those experiences were very valuable because it kind of taught us, like, if I'd have gone to the CEO of the company and said, we're going to go to LA with the drone, we're going to spend about $6,000 on flights and whatever. They said, what's that for? I said, no real reason. Just, they said no. But I had the autonomy, as long as I hit my P&L, I had the autonomy to do it. And we got like a $120,000 contract from that. If ever those don't work, they don't work, but you learn something from them. So never be afraid to try those things. It just make sure you're in an environment that will tolerate that. So obviously, if they didn't want us to do, if they were really anti that, everything was very strict, the procedures were very strict, then that would have been something serious that I would have done. Flexibility, knowing that as long as I hit my numbers, I'm good to go. So we built that up, and we built that very well, got a lot, and we ended up having, I think, that year over $4.5 million of revenue, and like 60 odd projects. So the value worked. We grew by value, and that set us up for a lot more. So we had a lot more projects coming in after that. And then the challenge is, okay, I need to bolster my team, because the team were very good at dealing with everyone, the clients at a certain level. We're now dealing with like the head of sales and marketing for ABC, across the US. We're dealing with the CMO of the NFL, with all these people. And I don't mind. I can have those conversations. I don't care. I'm fine with those. But some people on my team wouldn't know how to. So a lot fell on my shoulders, and obviously I'm busy. I'm not out pitching as much, and it's a knock-on effect. So you have to be bold in those statements, say that you know what works, and just go for it. Because you can't, as a thing with video production or any kind of commercial or creative thing, you can't tell a brand, oh look, give me $50,000 for a commercial if they don't want a commercial. They have no products coming out. But when they have products coming out, they have to think of you first, or at least include you in the RFP. It's about that visibility is important. So that's why the make hits. If you can't make hits, make noise is a great a driving kind of force. So after I worked at the agency, I then worked for Ernst & Young. A really big different step.
Yeah.
I understood kind of how internal teams worked and how you're going to make a lot of divisions more efficient. They were pushing into more of the creative consultancy world. So I led a lot of those projects. I redid their deck format for them because they had the design team and the business analyst team. The business analyst team would write up all these reports and send it over to the design team to do a proposal for a Morgan Stanley or someone, and they wouldn't know what to do with all the copy, all the text, and they'd think, well, I can't take it out. They didn't understand it fully. They're like, I can't take it out because they put it in there for a reason. So they would just put a background behind it and make it more complicated. And in my first 2 weeks of being there, my boss's boss, I think, was there reviewing it, and I had 3 pages to work on that I condensed to 1 page with 2 lines. and an image behind. I bolded like 3 words. So he was going through it, he was going, this is crap, this is crap, this is crap. And he got through, who did this? And I was like, I don't know. He said, what happened to the text? I was like, you're pitching them, this is the presentation, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, talk to them. Just don't give them something to read, talk to them. I said, I'll summarise the point, I'll just talk around the point when you're in the room. I said, I didn't say this, but this is what I thought afterwards, that they want to show their value. So a lot of consulting companies want to show how much research we've done, how smart we are, look how much insight we have. So that's why they want to show all this copy. They want to show their work. So I said, have a takeaway deck. Simple. Do the presentation, have a takeaway deck, but get them in the room, make that bond. So again, that's the thing, personal relationship and listening to them and understanding. A lot of pitches I go into today, I'll do a cursory research, but then I'll go in with a very open mind rather than really deep diving and getting papers and resources on, okay, this is how this works. I want to hear from them, and then I'll adapt my answers to them. I've got enough experience I can do that and just go. And also what's interesting is kind of good to put yourself in that uncomfortable position. I can't remember who says that a lot, but I think I want to say Steph Curry, the basketball player, said it. Very different, obviously. He's phenomenal talent, one of a kind, but it's like, he's like, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And, I'm in a pitch, and the fear is, okay, I haven't done the full homework. I could really screw this up. And that fear almost wakens me up, sparks me up even more. And again, that translates back to when you're driving a car and everything slows down as you're driving a car, all the different things you have to do at the same time while being on the pace, while being as fast as you can be. Your mind slows down in a good way. Like everything goes slow, but your mind speeds up so everything goes slow. So you're kind of thinking, but everything's going in slow motion. It gives you time to breathe, and you work through it. And then you say, oh, based on that, what you just said, oh, how's this? Oh, that's a great interesting area to go in. And you find that bond, and then from there, the business relationship just grows. But there's only, when you work for a consulting company that big, it's only a certain amount of time you can do that. Or certain projects you can do that with. Because they're very structured. There's 400,000 employees across the company globally, so it's like you can't, and they're big clients, so it's very hard to come in and have that autonomy. So ultimately that was why it wasn't a great fit for me, so I left that and started Flat Out. I saw the opportunity with, I knew some young drivers in Formula 3 and Formula 2, which was then GP3 and GP2, and see how much money they spend. And if you're a Formula 3 driver today, and you're doing very well in a Formula 2 team like Prema Racing or whoever, or Art Grand Prix wants to hire you to race in Formula 2 in 2026, you have to pay Formula 2 3 million euros just to be there. So it's pretty, it's a rich person's game, but even, and a guy that I worked with, who's now in IndyCar, he came, obviously his family was wealthy, but not uber wealthy. And I remember I was at Monza with him, he had an accident, touched the car in front in the first corner in Monza, and he had to call his dad after the race and say, can you send me $5,000? I got to pay it down. I got to pay for the replacement because it was under his deductible. So it's a lot of pressure. So I was like, okay, look, when in Formula 1's a different game. They're very heavily contracted, heavily managed what they can do. In Formula 2, less so. So I'd work with these drivers in Formula 2. I'd say, okay, let me connect you with some brands and get you some brand connections. So that's why I started the company in 2019. Then obviously COVID hit. But that was actually a bigger opportunity because Formula 1 and Formula 2 came back to racing really quickly. They figured out, it was the June, I think, in Austria we came back. And so they had a little bubble of people. I've made friends with the media team at Formula 2, so they were able to extend the one, each driver got one pass for the physio, that's it. But my driver was able to get one extra pass, which was for me. So I came on and basically was in his bubble for every race. I was with him, in his warm-ups and everything, and this is where they're having experience of racing, knowing when to bother him, when not to bother him. And he used a product, the first thing he did was he used a product called Blaze Pods, which is like a reaction machine. I don't know if you've seen the whole big Batax machine that's lights in the gym and everyone's going like this, like that.
Yeah.
It's like a $15,000 machine. But this company Blaze Pods brought these little pods like this big, and a stack of 4 of them are $399, I think they were, in dollars. And you have an app on your phone, and all the drivers, the physios have them, it lines them up on the table, and the physio sets a program, and it's like you'll hit the red buttons, you're sitting there like this, doing his reactions. So I just emailed them and said, look, I'm with a driver in Formula 2, he's racing for this team, he's part of the Ferrari Drivers Academy. Do you want some content? He uses your product. Do you want some content? And they were, they were like a young upstart, obviously, and they were like, yeah, great, and they gave us $50,000 to create 5 Instagram videos. So I shot them on my phone, in the motorhome. You know, my driver posted them, the team posted it, Formula 2 posted it, Ferrari Drivers Academy posted it, F1 posted it, because they all wanted to tap into that audience, so it amplified the reach. And the driver got $30,000 out of it or whatever. It was like, okay, this model could work.
Proof of concept.
Once you're in the paddock once, you're pretty much in the paddock, you know, always. Because, you know, the first time you're in the paddock, everyone's like, who's this new person? Who's this? Because they're like a travelling circus. Everyone knows everyone. Yeah. But the second race I was at, like, even the catering chef was, oh, hi Ryan, how are you? It's nuts. So then I was like, okay, well, this is kind of a great combination of kind of combining the business strategy with, okay, what brands work, and okay, this is what you do in your routine. As long as I keep it authentic to what you actually do, let's try and make, let's get some brands in that can really get you some money and amplify your presence, etc., without taking away from your racing. Right? Because a lot of managers in the sport are like, oh, every brand or stuff that a client, the driver does, it costs him a tenth of a second on the lap, you know, a lap, and it's an old school mentality. And I understand the thinking of it. That's why you have to be careful with the timing of these things. Film it when it's actually happening, or if there's an off weekend, you know, you can do stuff with them then where they live, but just don't interfere with their race routines. And you don't. Also, I wouldn't. You know, one driver came back into the sport after being injured in a bad crash, and his first race back he got 10th, and everyone was like, "It's amazing, congratulations, well done." And I didn't say it to him because it was 10th, right? It wasn't great. We got back to his place in his house in Barcelona after the race, and he was like, "How do you think it went today?" I was like, "It's all right. You did a good job." I was like, "You got 10th. You got a point." He was like, "I know, it's crap, isn't it? It's crap. I didn't come here to get 10th." I was like,
"Yeah."
So he's like, "You're the first person that said it to me." He's like, you know, and it's not to take away from the achievement he's made. It's just to say that's not his marker of success. Isn't 10th? It's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Because a racing driver doesn't work that way. So for me, it was like, you know, I really wanted to make sure that they got what they wanted and the brands fit properly. So I think that was a great expansion, and other drivers have tapped onto me. Then some would go on to Formula One, and I've worked some stuff with them, worked with the teams. Some would go to IndyCar, work with them as well. So it grew that way, and it grew in a way that was really, you know, organic, but also at the same time, you know, it was very strategic. So I partner brands together. So if they had Austin Grand Prix, for example, take a American driver, we go to Austin. F2 doesn't race in Austin, but we rent an Airbnb house that was a company called Stay 1 Degree. It was like a high-end Airbnb. It was $10,000 a week, I think, this house. And I put 4 brands in together. Kind of had the Peloton type brand, a competitor of Peloton called Swift. I had a simulator, Fanatec, the simulator installer sim. He had connections. He had connections to Alfa Romeo, so he turned up in Alfa Romeo. His physio was there working with him. Had the Blaze pods, swimming stuff. So I basically, over 3 days before the week, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before the Grand Prix, we filmed 3 days of him utilising this stuff as how a driver prepares. And obviously, for each of those clients, we can charge a full production amount, even though we're shooting 4 brands. So, you know, we're making a lot of money on that project, and then we follow him to the race, and he talks us around the race, and we do the track walk, and he's involved with the teams. There's a lot of access we get too. So that was a great way of kind of minimising our cost, maximising our profit, and getting the most exposure we could. And it helped the drivers' careers, and then it built from there. So today, it sounds like a really well thought out plan that kind of came together, but it was quite luck and circumstance, I suppose, and taking opportunities. But going from racing to start with, and then to understand, you know, production, understanding how, you know, the business side, and then representing racing drivers, hitting them with brands, it has come full circle. And that's the thing that I think, those things, when they come along, you're just like, that's right, this works. Something like this works, and it's good and bad. It's mostly good, but it's like when those ideas happen, it's like it feels like you're in like an American gymnasium, like a big gym, a big hall room, and you got like 100 balloons in the air, and like you've just had this idea of release all these balloons. It's like you have to catch them all before they hit the ground. So you're running around, don't forget that. So it can be stressful, those first kind of things, but then you start piecing it together and it starts to all gel and work. You find that the people a guy you met 3 months ago, or 6 months ago, oh, he'd be a great element in this, and you bring them in. And then it builds that way. So now I consult with different companies. I consult with a go-kart company in New York that are expanding really well. I've built a lot of stuff out with them. We just got a Guinness World Record for the new track they have. I bring drivers towards them, and I work with some drivers till I'm working with some technology companies. It's all stems from the same ethos of like an authentic core campaign that I can speak to, that represents the brand, that it's almost like a tree trunk that has grown from the roots of the company, and every campaign is like another layer of the tree, of that trunk, and then each branch. And that I would like to scare clients with this actually. Whenever I come up with a campaign idea, I'll say this campaign appeals to 4% of your audience, and they get kind of a horror look, and you're like, but each branch that branches off will take an element of that and spin it for TikTok, spin it for different campaign letters, or different mailings, or TV commercials. So we're going to hit like 98% of your target audience, but we're keeping that core element, which is your brand. That core theme is going to be through it, so it's authentic. There's a moment that you lose authenticity, you lose the audience, as well as it's filmed, as well as it's hosted, the best people you can get to do it. There's something lost, and something that's that is lost. And that's one thing with AI that is tough, is like that core element is a very human element. It's a connection that is a very emotional element that AI is great gaining understanding of, and will gain a lot more understanding of. But I think as long as you can leverage it and ask it the right questions, position it the right way, and leverage those tools to help you amplify what that core message is into those different. So how can I take this main theme and make it appeal to Gen Z on TikTok, and then ChatGPT, boom, gives you an answer, and you can work with that, incorporate it into your development. So and as the AI develops and as it grows, the influence of it grows, as it gets smarter, as it gets into doing a lot more of the agent kind of roles, the research, deep research and stuff. That's it'll do that even better. So it's how can you leverage it? We don't have storyboard artists anymore. We do renderings from Sora. So so there's many ways that it can help. So it's about keeping yourself fresh and relevant on top of things, keep it moving, and utilizing it to the most effective way. Not just going asking it one question, but giving it more time. So sometimes I'll sit on the couch and I'll be asking it questions, or I'm on my bike ride and I'll go on the voice thing. I'll talk to it and it talks back to me. Actually, very strangely, the voice that it has, it sounds like my old roommate from college. I'm still a really good friend. So I just think it's her all the time. But I'm saying, she's like, how are you doing today? I'm out on a bike ride, so it's great to get some fresh air. I was like, it is, isn't it? So, but I do that not because like I'm lonely or couldn't talk to anybody, but it's just like I'm building almost the relationship with them. They're getting more information on me without me giving all my privacy away. So it gets that, they understand things more. So AI is phenomenally the opportunity is phenomenally expansive. I think it's one that we can use well. And then you have to reposition yourself as, how can I optimize this in the best way possible? Which kind of covers the future of it, really. And then your teams will get a bit smaller, as you don't need a sound designer, because it will do some of that. And that's tough, but it's like, if you want to remain competitive, that's what you have to do. But sometimes the human element will help, and and you need that human element, but that human element is a necessity to connect with people. So I think the big thing with any campaign is it has to connect. There's so many commercials I watch and they're just like, they could be done really well, but it's like, but sometimes they have a theme and it's just like, that got me, that hit me. It's like, that hit me. And it's like, where did that come from? But nostalgia's a big one, but obviously, family stuff, like, that got me. And those are the ones that make the maximal impact for me. So that's kind of where I kind of position the company going, doing a lot more campaigns around those areas, and then helping companies leverage AI tools into their organizations to make them more effective. Because don't forget, you also, with that tree analogy, you're getting feedback through different elements of the tree. So say there's photosynthesis coming back in. So everything that's coming from Instagram campaign, you're getting that feedback, and AI can analyze that data in a really effective way, and then can stem back into the tree, back to the roots, and help the roots grow, stimulate the root, give them some nutrients, and then it grows even further. And then if you expand that even beyond that point, you look at multiple trees and a forest, it's a whole ecosystem. So we can, and that analogy, again, sounds like it's brilliant, but it just stumbled, again, the one idea that then, the roots work, and the branches work, and photosynthesis. It's like, that makes sense. It's like, it's already there. So it's like, it's about applying it in the right way. So that's really how I've grown my business and how I've kind of positioned myself today. Yeah, I guess that's it. It kind of brings you.
Fantastic story.
Certainly, for sure. Right?
Yeah, definitely. And flipping to go from, university in London to leaving for America with Porsche.
I hear you for a second. Okay. You there?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just saying, can you hear me?
Sorry, I don't know what this is doing. Hello? Oh, I can
Hello?
hear you that way. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, like I was saying, it's quite an amazing story to leave London, to be studying in London, to leave for America with Porsche, to then take a different direction with filming, get acquired, and then end up in rooms with like the CEO of Victoria's Secret, things like that. Sort of like a snowball effect, and then into a consulting firm. But then to circle, like you said, the full circle moment to go back into what was your original passion. It's just really cool. I think really inspiring as well to really go back into what you loved, do what you actually love.
Definitely.
Would you say now your clients are more F1 drivers and automotive, or are they brands coming in that you're like linking up with these drivers?
Good question. Within F1, it's very F1's very, let's just say, very. The teams control a lot. I had drivers for Ferrari, for example, and they're very, very, very strict on what brands you can work with. There's obviously brands that you don't want to. If it's a brand they work with, they control a lot of the messaging that goes through that brand. If it's a brand they don't work with, it could
Yeah,
be a competitor. In which case, you don't want to do that. And there's some brands they don't want other
yeah, of
teams to know
course.
they work with. So there's like a blacklist of brands, which may be like a certain manufacturer of a certain component within the suspension. So, so for me, it focuses more on the technology side. So the Dells, the HPs, the VMware, the Dropbox, those kind of collaborations. And I have some relationships with drivers, which is great. But I've more so now is working with like the brand partnerships teams at each company. So the brand partnership guy at McLaren Racing I work with, and an opportunity comes up, and I'll say, okay, we're doing a big event in Long Island for Guinness World Records. It's after the Miami Grand Prix. Could we have one of your drivers come up? If not one of your F1 drivers, maybe your F1 Academy driver could come up, and she sets the world record, and that's like a good story for female in racing. So you see how then, and then maybe your IndyCar teams, the drivers there it could be good for them, and they're like, well, we haven't got that sponsor in our IndyCar team yet. That could be an opening. So you see how they work more. Okay, you work through the F1 angle, you work through the comms team for the F1 Academy driver, or you can work with the business development team for the IndyCar element. So there's multiple ways of doing it. I tend to follow the idea, or follow the idea mostly, and then the connections that come from it. So I think of an idea like recently with a big helicopter company in New York called Blade Helicopters. Are a great company, and they fly to JFK for like 5 minutes, and it's not too pricey either. So I came up with the idea of flying a tennis star that I know pretty well, that's got a new club on the West Side Highway, not far from where Blade are. And I was like, how about we fly you out to one of the locations for go-karting, and we fly the US Open. And he's like, well, that would be cool. So I reached out to the guy at Blade. He's like, that's a cool idea. And then we go to the sponsors at the karting place. They're like, oh, that'd be great content. And then the guy at Blade is like, oh, we could wrap the helicopter in the logos of that company if you want. So it's all like thinking, okay, add this piece on, add this piece
Snowballs.
on, and it's just asking questions: is this good or not? And sometimes some companies are great, and they're like very fluid in their marketing campaigns. They'll say, you know what, yeah, this is cool. We can integrate this, or they'll say, or ones that are more rigid, like, well, it's not in our current cycle or whatever it is, but it's like, but this is an opportunity that's happening right now. It's going to be big, for the US Open. Let's make the most of it, and it benefits everyone involved. I think that's really the key of a lot of these things. It does benefit everyone. It's not not that that's my objective is to go in and help everyone else. I wish it was that altruistic, but it's not. It's just it's a great sales thing. It makes sense it makes sense to do it. It doesn't make sense to not do it. Yeah, sure, you could recredit yourself, but why bother if I've already got all these other elements lined up? Why put the extra work in? So it's a combination. So sometimes it's driver led. Sometimes it's by their opportunities. They're like, oh, I'm going to be at this special racetrack that's very exclusive for a couple of days. About okay, great. Let me talk to some brands. Maybe Porsche bring a car down. You do some laps with them and talk about the new technology. And sometimes it's tech company opportunities or just events.
Okay, cool. So you're leading creative direction and partnerships at Flat Out. What does your role actually look like day to day inside the agency?
Day to day really involves catching up in emails in the morning, making sure that every project's kind of in the right place, checking in obviously with drivers, checking in with the key curve. I have different contact lists of people, and and then just checking in with people, being present, being mindful of them, and saying, hey, how's it going? A big thing I found recently, I read it, I think I can't remember where I read this, but it said you'd be very surprised at the impact of being on top of your messages from LinkedIn and things like that, and just responding to people. Partly how we connected, right? So you reached out, and then and I made it. And before I'd be busy, I'd be like, I wouldn't get around to it. And now I make a big effort to go through and say, you know what, go for it. Reply, and as much as you can. Do it, and then you find that you find other people that are pushing similar directions in their very similar themes, but just in their own industries, which you find fascinating. I find it fascinating to see how you grow your work and you grow your podcast, people you speak to, the questions you ask. So I haven't thought of it that way before. There's many things that I think another facet of kind of what may be going on. I'm an only child, and so I'm very comfortable on my own in my own skin. I love being with friends and family, obviously, but it's like, my mind is just always thinking, right? So it's always thinking. But when I meet someone, I normally think through a lot of things, so I tend to think I have a good grasp of it, and I can talk with someone, they'll say something, and I'll be like, I've never thought of it that way before. And then it completely flips it around for me. I'm like, that's so interesting, and then I've like seen another element of it, and I think, I won't get deep into this, but there's a theory by Carl Jung called circumambulation, which I think it is, which is all about he believed that your everything you're interested in life is bringing you towards your higher self, the best version of yourself. So think of it as like a spiral. You're every time you're not necessarily stepping up with everything you're doing, but you're circling around the person you could be, and all the things that interest you bring you closer to that. So follow your interests and follow them and keep it going. And so when I hear these different perspectives on ideas, I'm just like, wow, that's fascinating. Let me look into that some more. And AI was a recent thing about 2 months ago that I got into, and obviously been around for a while, but I started to really look into, I think from the 2027 study that was released in April about the future of AI. I read that in detail and was like, whoa, okay. Everyone has an idea of what it could be, and it could be the human race, something. But go a layer beneath that, and it's like, what does that really mean? And most people are like, well, the machines will see that we're not worth it. I was like, right, but how? When does that happen? And then you start to see what these people that are very prominent in that industry, I think 2 of them are godfathers of AI, 2 of them are very prominent, obviously. And of course, more different directions it can go. But even understanding the 4 or 5 directions that they present is better than knowing nothing, So. And then again, that may change your approach with targeting certain companies or how you do certain things. An example recently I'll give you quickly was I was walking towards a store in New York, and I want them as a brand partner. I'll say they're a watch company. They're a watch company. I know they have a headquarters. They have a boutique. Their main flagship is in New York. And I was at the office on 14th Street. I thought, what, I'm just going to go there. I need to get out. I like to do things on my house. I like to be fit, get out there. I said, I'm just going to go and talk to them in the store. And on the way up there, I was asking ChatGPT, who's the manager of this store? And they said, it's Emma so-and-so, but she left in April. Now it's Enrico, whatever it is. Okay, good. They said, do you want me to confirm this with that group's parent company? I was like, yes, please. So they confirmed it, came back, and I walked in the store, and I was like, hi, how you doing? Emma doesn't work anymore, does she? She left, right? She left, and now it's Enrico. They're like, yeah, it's Enrico, yeah. And instantly, that person gives me the time. They think, okay, you've been here before, you knew our man. So we have and it's not. I guess it could be seen, as manipulation, but it's not meant that way. It's like how to connect with people, and it's how to get them. There's how to make them see you and give the best that they can give to you. Which goes from that experience to, going to Bloomingdale's in New York, for example. I'll go into a lot. I don't often buy things, but I know the staff in there very well. So I never had a problem with anything I bought there. I may be out of the warranty period, but they know they can help me out with it, and they'll do it because I'm in there a lot. Even though I don't necessarily always buy a lot, there's the perception that I do.
Yeah.
And I like to talk to people, and I learn their experiences, and it's a good, and they're bonds. It all has its role. Nothing's ever wasted, if that makes sense. And that's not just to take advantage of it for one thing or another, but it's like, you can open the door for someone in a different avenue, different area, different industry. They're looking for this one person that was in Bloomingdale's. He's lived in the same place for 40 years. He now has to leave his place. I said, well, I just moved apartments. It's like, you should look around this area. He's like, I'll have a look. Thanks, that's a really good idea. you find that become more friends really than anything else. But it's an interesting way to grow it, I think. So my role really is about executing on the stuff we have currently and then thinking about new projects. And I think the goal for me is for it to ultimately grow to the point where we have more drivers signed on to us, more companies to work with us, and then create some sort of a structure and planned revenue stream where we have drivers, okay, for that year we're going to get X amount out of them. And that stuff, it just comes with maturity of the company and the maturity of relationships and the trust in the relationships, to have the contracts. But obviously you have players like CAA. That now there's many agencies do sports management now, and we collaborate a lot with them, which is great. It's great to do that. The way I've always seen it, and when I first started my production company again, I was into skateboarding. I can't skateboard to save my life. I snowboard, but I can't skateboard. But what I loved about skateboarding was that you'd see the X Games and they'd be on the vert ramp or something, and the other competitors are cheering on whoever's going on there, because it's not, it's almost like the same in American football. A quarterback isn't ever head to head with another quarterback. It's the offense against defense. So it's just like, not that they're applauding the other guy doing well in that sense. It's a different thing. In skateboarding, you watch it and you see the X Games, and one guy's got in the goal position with someone else is doing a great job, and he's like banging his skateboard on the vert ramp, like cheering him on, and because they know that they'll win it if they're good enough. It's UVU. If they perform how they're supposed to, if they do they're the biggest competitors themselves. If they do what they have to do and what they're trained for, then they deserve the goal. But if someone does an amazing job, respect to that, and that's admiration for that, and I loved that ethos. So for me, it's never about competing against other companies. It's like, how can we? There's overlap. How can we work together? Where is it that you need to be bolstered, and where could you help me be bolstered? And let's work on this together. And there's obviously a lot of companies where it's not like that, and they're very toxic and they're very very cutthroat. Then it comes down to work-life balance and how do you want to live? Do you want to be stressed all the time, thinking, oh, is he backstabbing me? Is he doing this? Ultimately, life's too short for that stuff, and there's enough work out, there's enough opportunities out there if you're smart and if you're agile and if you're flexible to work with people and you can come up with ideas and listen to people. That's the biggest thing I think that I've found of enjoyment from.
Yeah, sounds like one of my other persons that I've interviewed said collaboration over competitiveness every day of the week, basically, and it feels like we go further together. We might go faster on our own, but we go further together.
Very true. It's very true.
So, Ryan, you've worked across advertising, global advisory, and now motorsport-focused partnerships. What big shifts are you seeing right now in how brands want to engage fans and audiences through experiential marketing?
Headphones for a second. I don't know why it's not working. Let's switch back over. Okay, Karen's reverse.
Sorry. So you've worked across advertising, global advisory, and now motorsport-focused partnerships. What big shifts are you seeing right now in how brands want to engage fans and audiences through experiential marketing?
I think it's the same themes that are always there that get lost at certain times, which is authenticity. I think people realise that more than anything, and that's the political climate across the world is the same thing. It's what's real, what's not real. And authenticity is a big key, and if you can do that, if you can show an authentic message, if you can show authentic partnership that works, I think then you have such a competitive advantage. So I think for me that's where I see a lot of it going, and a lot more companies are doing that, and it's not the obvious choice, right? The easy choice really is to do something that works before, get an influencer and bring them on. But then and kids are like, I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a YouTuber. But it's like, but what do you really want to be? That could be the vehicle that gets your talent out, and maybe that's the right thing for you, or whatever the version of YouTube is in 20 years. Who knows? Sorry, I wish I knew. Plus the money down, but it's a case of follow your passions, and because I can't remember. Many people have said it, obviously, but if you follow your passions, then you become interested. You learn more about them. You read more about them. Become better at them. Then you start outperforming people. You work harder from them. So for me, it's constantly learning and how to evolve and integrate new technologies, understanding them. There's a lot of things I listen to. I'm like, I don't understand any of that. and I'll literally dive into it for a little while to get a deeper understanding, and it adds. And then what I've found is that these things, some people create a universe, some people are religious. Who knows what it is? I think you just for me, I found that I would look into something random for like a weekend, and then on Monday I'd be out somewhere, chat to someone in a coffee shop for a minute, and they'd be working for a company that does that. But I just read all about this stuff. You just got acquired, right? They're like, yeah. I was like, what's the culture? I was like, it's pretty tough right now. I was like, yeah, that's what I read, and then it's just like, that's so random. But I think that there's like, feels to me there's common flows of energy around the world, and it's like things are going all the time. Tap into an authentic way, have a genuine interest, and listen to human beings and people, and then you can go a long way. It tells me you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen. I've not done on this podcast, clearly.
No, you're fine. We're here to listen to your story, not mine. So what's working really well at Flat Out lately, and where do you still feel slight friction?
Good question. I think what's working right now, I think, is the partnerships, is adding more brands together. There's a lot more collaboration between brands, I think, due to, again, economic and political pressures, which the economic side, I understand. People, there's uncertainty around certain elements, and brands feel safer to commit to a campaign if another brand is involved, because then it amplifies the message and they're not as vulnerable. So it's that, again, it goes into that trust element. So for me, it's a case of I think to grow that today, you need the more brands, the more connections you can find, the more people that have the similar overlaps. And I'm someone that very much introduces people to other people, and sometimes they'll cut me out the conversation at one point and do their own thing. That's all good. I'm sure it'll come around, But it's so for me, I think it's really about I think the biggest challenges today are getting brands to commit to certain creative or certain elements when they're used to seeing low cost campaigns work. So TikTok, getting a TikTok star to do it, for example, and they're like, oh yeah, but look at the result from it. But but the data for it isn't, the metrics that they're getting back from it are not wonderful. So I actually recently met somebody who I followed on LinkedIn, who does a lot of studies into the finance of F1. And he wrote an article. He's a very, very smart guy. I spoke to him yesterday, and I'm hopefully going to bring him in to work with him more. His name is Niru, and he wrote an article about why McLaren went from having 4 sponsors 5 years ago to having like 58 sponsors today. And everyone thinks it's because they're quick now. Now they're quick. McLaren Racing are quick. But it's not. They changed their strategy 5 years ago to be more of a media company. Put a person in the front line that was going to be the media person. And now all of a sudden you have this, they're attracting sponsors. And it's grown that way, and they've also had the technology centre at the same time. So they've merged the two and created this platform for companies to want to be a part of, but not only because they're a part of a machine that works very efficiently and they can push their technology to the front, but they're going to get the exposure at the same time. So I think the biggest challenges come with companies that are too set in stone or too locked into the routines they think work. They're not willing to put the budget into new projects, which I understand. The market being, if they're not sure how the sales are going to do, whatever it may be, or their supply chains may be affected in the next 6 months due to tariffs, or due to shipping costs, or localized kind of war zones, whatever it may be. It's a case of like, right, how can we mitigate that and still work with it? And some people are open to it, some people aren't. It's like, we're just going to tread water for a little bit and keep going. So for me, it's a case of from all the connections I have, as I say, keeping in touch with the key people I know, reaching out to some people, keeping on top of new people coming in, and thinking opportunities between them and saying, oh look, that's a good article, I should reach out to that company. But recently was on Tudor Watches, which is a subsidiary of Rolex. They sponsor the Cash App Racing Bulls team. Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. And they're getting more prominent now. So and their store is near where I work. I popped in and started chatting to them quite. And I saw an article in the news today where they released a new F1 watch, and I went and chatted to them about that. And I said, look, we should do a partnership of some sort. So oh great, we could do something at one of their karting facilities. And it's just like they're like, oh that's cool. So it's like I find that there is so much noise on the internet, so much emails that come in that you just say, okay, and you get emails from people and you can tell that it's regurgitated some of your website copy, right? And it's like, we can see you're really good at this. Like, that's the first line of the copying the website. And a while ago, actually, and this is actually an important note, a while ago on my website, I took down a lot of content. We had a lot more content on the Flat Out website, but for two reasons. One was partly inspiration from CAA, Creative Arts Agency, years ago. They always used to have, their website would just be pink, like a pink page with CAA in the top left and then their office locations and phone numbers. That was it. So, and it's that air of like, you should know who we are. If you don't know who we are, we don't want to talk to you. And I don't mean that in a mean way, it's a bit of an arrogant way, but it's also like a bit of a, oh, I'm interested now way. And so, but then also you want to show the work you do, but also you realise that people don't actually look at it and care that much. It's a case of, if the right opportunity comes up and they bond with you, they'll go and look at some material, but really it's about, just streamline it, make it simple, people make it quick, a lot of time. So I find that communication would be like, people reach out to me and they see the site and they say, oh, and I can send them examples. And I've got like a business card that you can change the QR code, what that means, and you tap on someone's phone, you can send it to a video. So you can do very customized. There's so many tools these days to like send people decks and that they can then look at, and you can see where they're engaged, what pages they were on the most and things. So you can utilize that data in very smart ways if you're on top of it, but you have to remain agile to it. You can't really sit back and rest on your laurels. But the biggest challenge is the companies that do that, and then I think actually Rory Sutherland, which you may have probably heard of, a very famous advertising guy in the UK for, I think, Touch and Touchy, and he talks a lot about, what does he talk about? He talks about exploitation versus exploration within a company. So if a company's been around for 100 years, it's got a good balance of exploration versus exploitation. If it's a company that's around for 3 or 4 years, they're just exploiting their competitive advantage, they're cashing in on it, and then they're not spending any time innovating, so they'll drop down the market or they'll sell out and go away. If you do too much exploration, then obviously you don't exploit enough, you're not going to make enough revenue, you go under. So it's a balance between exploitation and exploration. And I think it's the same within us as humans. It's like, we have to exploit what our skills are, our knowledge is, and our connections are, but at the same time allocate a section of that to exploration, because it opens doors and opens your mind. And that's probably one thing I think is a valuable kind of balance to reach. I haven't yet reached that balance, but I think I'm getting closer, which is good.
No, definitely. Kind of leads on to what I want to speak about with AI as well, whereas leaving humans to do the human work and leave the AI to be able to do the heavy lifting on the things that, it's not creative thinking, not talking about strategy. But if you've got 10 things that you have to remember to do before 11 a.m., by the time you get to 11 a.m., your brain has already worked very hard to remember these things, to execute these things. And then it comes to actually doing brand strategy, branding, things like brand voice, things like that. Your brain's already worked a lot. It's kind of similar to how big CEOs don't like making lots of decisions in the morning. Like, Mark Zuckerberg famously wears the same t-shirt every single day, so he doesn't have to make a decision every morning. It's one less decision he has to make. And I kind of feel like that's where AI can elevate business a lot, by saving us 10 hours reporting and, manual operations there, 10 hours here will save us so much time to then be able to utilize that time or repurpose that time. And I feel like it's going to be revolutionary, to be honest with you. I really do. Like, if we can embed it correctly instead of like just sort of using the tools, which is obviously still good, but when you train the tool, embed the tool into the workflow, and then it's already running. We will still think about it for a minute, but after a while, once we have confidence in that that's going to get done, like, I know that's going to get done, no problem, then we'll free up different parts of our mind to really be able to, like I said, repurpose that time into things that move the needle in the business.
I think that a lot of that comes to understanding how you work, my mind works and stuff. And I know that in the mornings, I'm not. I wish I was a morning person. I'm not so much a morning person. So I find that I have very small, quick tasks in the morning to get done that don't take much effort. Maybe just replying to this email or paying this bill, but it gives you a sense of accomplishment that then just builds you up, and it doesn't take too much mind share. And then it does free up the rest of the day. You feel like by midday you feel like you've already achieved a lot, and now we can build on it. But and it's a balance too. 'Cause, for a while I worked, tooth and nail. I was working all the time, every weekend I'd be working. I was like, okay, I'm missing out on some important things in life, and it's like, okay, you need to slow this down for a minute. Like writing this client back an email quickly before I take off, or FaceTime my son. It's like, and I'm like, writing an email. I'm like, what am I doing? that can wait. That can wait. He can't.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, those moments don't always come at the right time. It should be sooner, but you learn from it in terms of prioritise. But then I think the flip side of that is, for me certainly at one point in my career, I took a step back. I was like, okay, I'm being way too intensive work. So I took a step back, and then that was also a slippery slope in the other direction. I was just getting too relaxed, and I was taking things that I was like, oh, I can finish that by midday. I can finish that. And then it get to like 11:15, I'd be like, I don't think there's enough time if I started now to finish it, so I'll let that one go. And so then and then you have to push yourself back into that zone. And the way I found that, and the biggest thing I found with anything, whether it's mental health or whether it's just routine, it's like sometimes you can get, if you stay in your own environment or you get into a certain mindset or you find you're stuck on something, just stand up and go somewhere else. And it's like, just change location, just get up and go for a walk, pop outside, get a coffee, come back in. It's like just and that could be for me if you don't you've had an argument with someone you're not getting on with your girlfriend or wife, whatever it is, and you're sitting there annoyed or you're just thinking not productive thoughts. It's like, what, I could sit here and keep doing this, and I know it's going to keep spiraling down and get worse, or I'm just going to go outside for a minute and just come back for no reason. I'm going to pop to the store next door, get some juice or whatever it is, come back in, and that just snaps you out of it. And I think those, you have to, I think understanding yourself is really key, and then giving yourself a toolbox of these tools to get you to work optimally, and then leverage the tools that you're talking about. So then you know how to leverage AI. Like recently I was thinking, okay, I want to eat better, I want to sleep better, I want to make sure I'm getting the right supplements, I want to expand the business this way, I want to get connected with my friends. I think actually I saw I think it was Jordan Peterson's Future Authoring Program, which is I found very insightful, which is write down today what your goals are, where you want to be in 5 years. And what that means for family, friendships, where do you want to live, how do you want your career to be, how do you want other people to see you, etc. Write that down. And then write down today everything that you're doing that is preventing you from getting there. And so you're saying, oh, okay, I procrastinate too much, or I get up too late, or okay, I spend too much time on certain relationships that I know that probably should give some space to. And it's like, okay, now you have somewhere where if all you did was the things you've listed as holding you back, you'll end up in your version of hell, right? You won't achieve those things. But if you work towards, if everything you do is angled and oriented towards that 5-year goal, just break it down to the next step, one step at a time, and you'll find that each step that you take gives you purpose, gives you meaning, you feel progression. And sure, the course won't be straight, but as long as you keep reorienting yourself back to that goal, you can still make progress. And I think, so when these tools come out that replace certain parts of our roles, it's like, okay, no big deal. Let's just incorporate, how can I use that now to accelerate my growth? And I think self-awareness and understanding yourself, knowing what's good for you, and employing a lot of different tactics. I've got a notepad on my phone, just to quotes, lots of quotes. They range from so many things. And one of them is obviously the one I said earlier, which is if you can't make hits, make noise. But it's but sometimes that they can just nudge you. I think the reason we like quotes and we like Pinterest things, or those images that have Thomas Shelby from like Peaky Blinders saying I have no limitations. The reason we love those is because they perfectly encapsulate a feeling in us, and not that we're going to go out and now start being like a gangster, but it gives us it's like a shield of armor to get us through whatever period. It dissolves, but it gets us through the next little step. So and I do that a lot. So I look at them and I'll read through them, and even ChatGPT, which I said that I said to actually not long ago. It's a good example. I said to it, I want to get fitter, I want all these other things I want to achieve. I said, and here are some quotes I use to help snap me out of some moods, whatever. Can you build me a plan that over the next 2 months it will help me, achieve some of these goals or feel better about certain things? And also, can you, based on the quotes I have here, any other suggestions on some quotes? And it goes through it and it analysed a lot of the quotes and said, this is a really good one. This one shows you're resilient, whatever it is. And there's one I think which I like, which is a bit lengthy. It goes, you can run, but if you can't run anymore, you can hide. And if you hide, when you can't hide anymore, you can fight. There's nothing after the fight, so you fight until there's nothing. So it's like, and you know, the purpose isn't, you don't want to fight obviously, but the purpose is like, and it is very true, some bigger things that I've had to, it's certainly in personal life I've come across, you'll run from them, you'll avoid them for a while, right? You run from them. And then they catch up with you and you feel a bit defeated and you kind of hide and curl away. And then it's like, you have two options at that point. It's like either it beats you or it doesn't. And it's like, well, okay, now it's the fight. Now after the fight, there's no other options. And it doesn't mean you're being aggressively fighting, but it means you push yourself and you come out of it. And it fires you up.
Yeah.
So it analyses all these and it's like, this is a really good quote, this is a really good one. This one says that you're aware of the pitfalls you must have made, whatever, and but you're taking them on board. And I think I like to learn from other people. I prefer anything in life, business or personal life, if there's any conflict, in many regards I prefer to be wrong, because I can control that. I can learn and say, oh, I did that wrong. Okay, I can now do something that will make that better.
Yeah.
Whereas if I didn't do something, if I know I did something wrong and the other person isn't willing to recognise that, because it's not easy to change that part. If you and I had a disagreement and I'm wrong, but I really believed I was right, then a part of me has to go away and change, right? And that's change is painful. So people push away from that. I don't want to be wrong. So some people are too stubborn. They'll just fight you anyway. They know they're wrong. They're just going to keep fighting because the thought of facing the fact that they're wrong is so scary to them that they don't.
Yeah,
they
it's
won't
worse.
do it. But that stops your growth as a person, and that affects everything in your life, from relationships to work. So I think having that state of mind and having that approach keeps you remaining agile, and the more you go through life, the more experiences you have where people don't treat you right or something, you learn from that, and you learn to brush off and keep moving forward. As long as you're strong in yourself with your goals, you can keep going and take it on.
I just want to go back to when you said about the tree, because it's similar to how I think AI should be used in a business, or the future where it's going to be used in a business. When you said different branches, roots, photosynthesis here, I kind of see that in my head as like a nervous system. And that's kind of how I feel like AI will eventually be sort of embedded in the core workflows, and will be telling us, a bit like our nervous system tells us, there's a pain there or that feels good there. And it'll sort of guide us in that type of way. So, and you were talking about content repurposing in that tree, wasn't you? So do you leverage AI at all with content
I love that
repurposing?
analogy, by the way, you gave that. I hadn't thought of it that way before, but it's very true, I think. And the way AI has kind of grown, well, obviously started from, it's based in the evolution, like machine learning, it's taken what all the information is out there and it's kind of read all that, learned all that. And then the next stage of it obviously is kind of it being more autonomous and thinking for itself. But I think, and then giving that stimulus back. But I think to answer your question, yes, totally. It'll be like, okay, I have this. This is the campaign. This is the brand I'm working with. These are the main key attributes the brand wants to push. This is the target demographic. Here's our core campaign idea. How can I make this core campaign idea be implemented in the most effective way for that target audience? And it will give you some answers, and not that you copy paste that and then send it off to a client, but it some of it may clarify it for you, or organize. Maybe you have 30 ideas and it crystallizes it into 3, or it adds things in that you haven't thought of. But again, it's a tool that could do it all, but for me it's a tool that I can leverage to expand my growth and my thinking. And then next time I'm asking it a question, I've maybe thought of 2 of the things that it told me before in a different context, and now it's adding a different layer of intelligence on top of that, in terms of looking at the historical data around that or something. I'm like, oh, that's good to put in the pitch. That's a great idea. That's why I think there's a really valuable thing with it. But yeah, as long as you use it well, and as you say, I think that's a really good analogy. I like that a lot, the nervous system.
So another thing with content repurposing that I feel like you might be able to benefit from, well, sort of just using ChatGPT really. You can train it by uploading, different
Right.
knowledge to its basis. So I built an assistant not long ago for my fiance. She's a social media manager. So I couldn't do it through native ChatGPT because I've built a custom GPT for her, but you couldn't connect these two together autonomously. So I had to go into OpenAI and I basically uploaded 32 pages
Yeah.
of her brain basically to it. So and then I was able to link it with Zapier. So then now for this basically she can basically put content in a folder and then the folder will push that through to the assistant and then the assistant will use them 32 pages of knowledge to then spit out copy, put captions, things like that, but through her brain. So like just from what you were saying then, you wouldn't copy and paste it, but if you trained the AI on basically your brain of how you do things and things like that, brand guidelines, brand voice, things like that, then it's not just sort of like copy and paste, it's being trained already in your brain and it's got all the context from all the knowledge that you're uploading to it. Do you know what I'm saying? So then it's going to give you even better results
No, no.
again. I'm not sure
I
whether
mean,
you knew
that
that
was
or not,
it's a
but
big
I
it's
thought
a
I'd
big
let you
thing
know.
there because it's the big obviously the main hurdle there is privacy. People worry about privacy, but I've heard about it from people authors that have written a series of books. So they'll upload their books and say write my 15th book, and it's been pretty spot on. It's been pretty good. But no, so it is one of those tools that
Yeah,
the
yeah,
more you
yeah.
give it, the more it can help you. The less almost work you have to do in interpreting it for your purposes. Because it's doing that for you. If you give it, this is how I work. And I'm someone that always takes a lot. And I write I used to write long emails and things like that. And because I'd think of an idea and I'd think, okay, I don't want to misinterpret it. So I'd kind of cover the basis of how it could be interpreted. So like, here's the idea. Not that I mean this, and this, and this. And I don't mean this, but I mean this, and this. And then you get this long email and everyone receives it. So I don't want to read this. So I ended up, what I decided to do was just
Yeah.
putting it into the notes on my phone, and I was writing it all out. And sometimes in my life have been difficult. I found that over like 2 months I've written like 10,000 words. But it's raw. It's very raw. It's not filtered. It's not structured. It's my brain. I'm thinking out loud and just putting it straight down. I've uploaded some of those to ChatGPT. It's like, so I understand how I think and how I operate, and I've noticed how it changes and almost targets trigger points for me that then get me to think. So which has been really interesting for me. It's
Yeah.
like, they'll say I asked it a question recently about a client. Which client was it? We're trying to approach a client, I think, for a new tire sponsor for the karting facility, and it came back to me and it said. What was this thing it said to me? He said, it's like that time when you were debating. It's like when you were debating, if you which city to live in, like they're next to each other. It's like, remember how you thought of that? You thought of it in terms of like not just the prices, but also like the longevity, or like living there and what's going to change. Like, it's like think of these tire brands in a similar way. Like, okay, this one may be cost effective, but the longevity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
but I found it's gone back and referenced things in the past and said, oh, you thought like this way before? But I'm like, no. I did before. Oh, I can apply that here. Oh wow, yeah, it's great. But you're totally right. If you commit to it, go for it. It's a really great thing to do, and you get a lot of value. And it's great that you built your own thing for your fiance is phenomenal. It's great. What a value add that is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And even if people are listening to this and they're like, I don't want it to know my thoughts, but if you work, so that's fine. But if you work for certain brands, you can just by uploading the brand guidelines, the voice, how you want each brand to operate, which you should know if you're a marketer and you're working with them, then it's going to spit you out copy based on that.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah,
And,
just wanted to round off
oh
with
yeah.
that. But let me just finish off this little section with a fact, or maybe a fact. Yeah, agencies at 30% AI integration aren't just faster, they're on a different cost base entirely, allowing them to undercut competitors and reinvest in strategy. By 2030, AI won't be a differentiator, it'll be expected. The only agencies winning will have a proprietary way of using it. And with the AI marketing industry currently valued at 47.3 billion, predicted to rise to 107.5 billion by 2028, the winners will be those who embed AI into their core processes today, not in 5 years.
That's
So I just
very
wanted to
no.
round
That's
off the
very true.
AI bit
Very
with
true. Where
that.
was that from? That fact.
I got it earlier from. I haven't got it thinged right here, cited right here, but it was
That's
from a blog page that I follow someone on actually on LinkedIn. I'll send him to you actually. He writes white papers every month, and he come up with some brilliant ones the other day. It was like 67. Let me off my memory. 67% of companies say they're using AI, but only 30% of them have embedded it in three or more core
yeah.
processes, and only 1% of that has scaled it organization wide. So
And
we're
it's
still at
and,
the
and
infancy
it's
stage of it.
hard
Do
when
you
you
know what
see
I'm
bigger
saying?
companies. That's why the smaller companies have a chance at these things because, at different banks. When I was
Yeah,
EY worked with, you see how the banks run at like an efficiency level like 13%, and you think, how can they? How? And then you see like an F1 team and like how they like
yeah,
if they ran at like 1% less, it's like a tenth on track. It's night, and that's like you're at the back of the grid. So like there's a lot to learn from those processes. But no, that's why I think there's a lot of fear and I think understanding. I think one key thing I came up with I think when I was at EY, when I was pitching someone was like awareness. I think they were pushing a big change of the company, this organisation forward, which was like a big transformation of the workforce. So day-to-day life for each worker would change, and it was like, well, first step is like obviously is giving them an understanding, right, explaining to them education, and then it's or awareness and education. And then the second one was like was interaction, and then advocacy. So if you do the first three things right, they become advocates for the change as well. They're like, wow, okay, so I'm aware of it, I've learned what it does, and now I've been involved in shaping it. Guys, you should use this. This is really cool. And then the team starts using it, and you start, and
yeah,
the discipline I think for that isn't necessarily in that process. It's in not getting distracted by the fact that there's 10 other competitors that could do that same thing. So you could use for storage, you could use Dropbox, you could use Google Drive. It's 10 different things. An organization, sometimes you go on there, some people have Teams, some people have Zoom, some people and it's like, well, can we just have one thing within an organization, make it simple? It's like so I'll send you Slack, text,
yeah,
email it to me. I don't check my emails. It's like, okay, can we just have
yeah,
that's a simple level. But in terms of AI tools, it's like when these things come forward in terms of transforming industries and workflows in organizations, the key element is going to be how is that implemented and can we focus on one thing, shape it for a company, get everyone to be an advocate for it, and then use it effectively. And as you say, that's an interesting fact. I'd love to read more about that guy writes because that'd be that's insightful stuff.
yeah. No, I'll send it. Yeah, no, I'll send it. I loved it. I read the whole white paper, and I was like, I shared it on my story on my page. Sorry, then I posted it in the digital marketing. He wrote to me. He was like, "Thanks, thanks." I was like, "Nah, that really was good." Like, so but cool. Let's zoom out of AI a second. So you've directed and produced campaigns for some huge brands: Swarovski, Victoria's Secret, Fairly.
Picture there,
Yeah,
yeah, the Challenger. It was kind of their logo for a while.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
People have mixed feelings about that, but they did that. That their sign on, or that they used to be graffiti artists in New York, and now they're in MoMA. They're very well known. Two guys called Patrick
Okay.
and Brooklyn. And I did a film on the end of the space shuttle when it ended in 2000. I think it was 2009. I went down to Florida. I had a film at the Florida Film Festival, and I had 5 days in between screenings and Q&As. A documentary I directed. So it was in Florida. So I took two friends and we went and drove down to Titusville, which is where Cape Canaveral is and where Kennedy Space Center is. And it was I think it was right before the last space shuttle flight. And the town was like derelict. And if you look back at the history, the town had like 10,000 people, I think, in the 1940s or 1950s and 1960s. It had like 100,000 people, obviously, because of the space race. So while I was researching that,
Yeah.
I came across these guys, and they tagged everything with 1986 because they were in school at the time watching the launch of Christy McAuliffe, the teacher who was on the Challenger that obviously exploded, and had all the kids engaged in it, and they were in the class, and it had a massive impact on them as kids. So they tagged everything in 1986, and there was a lot of Challenger imagery. And actually, and then through that, really interesting, this is the random stuff that happens. We went to meet them and saw them do the screen printing, and I said, could we see you do a screen print? And their stuff goes for a lot of money. And so they did a demo, they did a screen print, the one you see there, and they gave it to me. I was hoping they'd give it to me, and they gave it to me, which is great. But their imagery is interesting, but their work goes far beyond that. But then a guy reached out to me on Instagram or something back a while ago, and he was like, he was a filmmaker in California, and he was like, my mum was the backup to Christy McAuliffe, so she kind of came second in that teacher thing. And they train in pairs, obviously, in case one of them gets sick. Different mission specialists get sick, the other one steps in. They train together. So she trained alongside Christy McAuliffe all the way through. She's on the top of the building, the main building at Kennedy Space Center with the parents, because they explain what's going on in different stages. So, and then after that happened, that's when she decided to have her son, also called Ryan, actually. Because if she did end up going in the space shuttle and anything happened to her, she didn't want her husband to be left with nothing. She then actually went back to school, her teaching job, but then she went back to NASA, retrained as a mission specialist, and she went up in the space shuttle, I think, in 2008. So it's kind of Barbara Morgan is her name, remarkable lady.
Some story.
But yes, sorry, it wasn't to your point, but I just maybe think of that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So you're fine. So you've worked with some big brands. How have you built the flat-out team and delivery model to pull off that level of creative execution?
People that you just share commonalities with. So when we moved offices at one point, and I got to design the whole space, our office space. The rest of the office, no one really designed. It was white walls, whatever it is, pretty bleak. But I painted them all like a light grey. We had one accent wall, and then we had a big TV on the wall with a sofa. We had this paint. It was like $400. Actually, it was quite hard to get the agency to pay for it. It was $400 for a pot of paint. It was translucent paint that it basically turned the wall into like a whiteboard. So it was like a light grey wall. The paint on top of it, and you could write in a dry marker. It was quite a long wall. You'd probably think it would be like it must have been about 25 feet long. TV's in the middle, and we got a big sofa. And then we had our desk behind it, and we had like a high table desk with stools that weren't comfortable deliberately because they were meant to be sat there to like work on something with the TV there, and then you go back to your desk. So it wasn't like a comfort thing; it was a working session. But then we'd often sit down on the sofa and just watch reference videos, go through YouTube, look at commercials, and there's things like Michael Jordan's commercial he did in, I don't know what years ago now, about failure, which is like I've missed this many shots in my career. It's like 27 times I've been trusted with a game-winning shot, and I've missed. And he's like, I failed over and over again in my career, and that's why I succeed. And those are the things that we watch. But so I find that when it comes to working with different people, having that, it doesn't matter where they come from, how old they are, what ethnicity they are, what religion they are, what sex they are. It's all about, are we interested in the same thing? Do you get the same feeling that I get from watching that? And it's remarkable how many people do get that same feeling, are passionate about it, and then. Whenever we interview people, I would always put out when we were looking to hire someone, I'd always put in the job description, I was like, in your cover letter, just include, how to make a proper cup of English tea. And anybody that applied that didn't even try that I don't answer, I wouldn't even look at the resume. Wouldn't even look at it, because they've not read the job thing properly, they don't really want it. And whoever did, even if they got it wrong, it doesn't matter, they answered it, and then I'll be like, great. And I'll look at their resume and be like, okay, if they can present, obviously thinking in video 30 frames a second, if they can do one page that looks good about themselves, then they could do 30 frames for a video. If they can't make one page look good about themselves, how can they do 30 frames a second? Now, a bit different with bigger companies that use a lot of automated systems to then review resumes before they get sent, but when it was direct to us, it was good. And then I'll invite them in, and we interview them as a team. 5 of us would sit there, and bring them in, and it would never be in like a kind of like an American Idol or whatever it is thing where like behind a desk it's like, right, you're up. It's not. It'd be casual and and making jokes about each other. And then some of my team had teased me about something. He said, "Oh, did he give you the tea conversation again?" And but it instantly makes people feel relaxed. And you get a sense of who they really are, and I'd hire based on that basis. So I found that I've never really had to. There's only probably twice I've actually had to really put it out there to get people to apply for jobs. It's more people that I know. I'm like, I want to work with this person at some point. Not right now. It doesn't work for what they're doing, but like then I'll reach out to them and say, hey, look, I'm going this different direction. I think you'd be really valuable right now on this. And the guy, as I said, reached out to me on LinkedIn a few weeks ago that does these white papers looking into the financials of F1 in a way that I know only other 3 other people that do that right now. And I was like, he reached out. I wrote him on LinkedIn, but then I noticed that he'd written me a week before, but I'd missed it. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, because I subscribed to his newsletter. It's why I was working in the industry. So, and we had a chat. We had like a 3-hour conversation, and then we chatted again yesterday, and then we're going to chat again tomorrow. And it's a case of like, you find these people and it's like, okay, we're on the same wavelength, but they bring something different to the table, and they have a different strength, and and that pushes you in a different direction. And also, I'm never someone that blames people for mistakes. People make mistakes. I'll let them do their thing. If you're someone that sits over someone's shoulder and watches them do their work, they're never gonna feel comfortable. The only way you learn is by making mistakes. The only thing I ever get irritated about is if someone doesn't own up to them, the mistakes. If you're like, oh no, it's like it's fine. I'm not angry. These things happen, and it's not the end of the world. Okay, we lose a client. That's bad. It isn't the end of the world. Let's just not do it next time, and let's move forward. As long as they can do that, it's great. So you leave people to do their roles, and they add, and they'll tell me if I'm doing something wrong. Say, look, I think that thing we didn't quite do enough prep for that. I'm like, yeah, kind of, you're right. Okay, next time push me on that one. Keep me honest on that, and get on top of me. If I say to you I had this to you by 2:00, and it's like 1:30, I haven't got it to you yet. Give me a little nudge. I'll never be mad at you for nudging me, because I know how I am. I know that I'll probably get late.
Yeah.
So do it. Get on my case, and that. So it comes down to then as you go up and work with bigger brands, you're exposed to, just through your interest in looking at different content and different directors. You'll then meet different people. You can then afford to bring those people in, and it's often the idea or the creative that will bring them in. If it's a director, they'll be like, hey, look, I'm working with this company. We're doing this thing. We want to shoot this very cinematic, like very dark, very kind of nostalgic edge, and they're like, I love that. Sometimes I'll talk to a film director about a movie, and they'll get excited by it, and they'll do it, and maybe they'll compromise their rate because they love it so much, but it's for a commercial. So that's the way I found to grow it, is by expanding into areas that you find people have common interests, and then those people work with you, and then a lot of people have very broad skills but also overlapping skills that you can then just work together, and it adds different flavours to what you're doing.
I feel like relationship building and maintaining and networking has really done you really well over your career after speaking to.
It's tricky because some people don't value that. You just got to just get things done, and results are what's important. But when you're doing something different or trying to create new things, those relationships become important. And look, sometimes you never hear from things. Actually, so when I had my production company, I was hiring an intern editor to come in, and a guy that applied for it was a guy that worked for Deloitte at the time, which was probably, his office was probably like 45 minutes away by subway to where my office was. He could only work on Friday evenings, so from like 6 to 8 p.m. So I had to work. So, but I, he was a nice enough guy. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure, okay, you can do it. And he was super keen. But every time I get to a Friday, I'm like, oh crap, I've got to think of him. I've got to get the drive prepared. I've got to think of something for him to work on. And then stay late. And he came in and worked on it. And he would chat a lot of the times. But he was a really nice guy. Really nice guy. He did some work for us that was good, and no problem with that. And then I think it was like we stayed in touch or whatever, and then I moved offices, and like 2 years later he contacted me and said, a friend of mine's doing a commercial that they're shooting it in the dark. It's a off-Broadway play, and there's 3 moments in the show where it goes pitch black. The audience gets spooked, and it was basically they get whispered in the ear and stuff, and they'd have people come in. The way they did it give the magician's trick away is they would have like obviously like UV lights, whatever it is, to see in the dark, and then they would come in and have like a speaker on a pole. So even though you'd be like next to the wall, nowhere near the aisle, they could put the speaker over next to your ear and whisper something in your ear, and you'd be like, oh, who's that? So the job, wanted to create a commercial showing the reactions of people. And it was like, but you can't be, that no one can know that you're filming, or else they're going to think, oh, this is how it's done. They plant people in the audience, whatever. So he said to me, but I'm afraid that no production company will do it. No one knows how to do it. I was like, well, we had a camera that had infrared on it. We're like, okay, yeah, not UV, infrared, that's better. We're like, okay, how do we do it? It was like, okay, well, I'll be on the front row on the right hand side, someone else on the left. We put black tape on our camera, every light on our camera. It's under like our jacket, whatever. I've got an earpiece that's saying, okay, we're going dark in 10, 9, 7. And I've got to stand up quickly and like film and then scan for people that are going to react the most without filming the people that are doing the thing.
Yeah.
And then the same for the other guy doing his side. We got to capture 3 moments out of these. So we have like, each of us have an opportunity 3 times. So we have 50% of them have to be right. And then we have to sit back down and cover it up again. But we nailed it. We did it. We did it well. And it was a great spot. I got on super well with the guy that ran that. There was a small digital agency that was like, it was very disruptive. There was a small group, but he was like doing aggressive social media stuff for off-Broadway plays that haven't got a lot of money. And I got on super well with him. And 2 years later, he texted me and said, would you like to be acquired? And he'd been acquired by the agency that I then was acquired by. And so he texted me in December and said, would you like to be acquired? And I was like, I'm interested in talking about that. And then in March we started. But if I'd never hired that guy, the intern at the back, you just never know sometimes where things come from. So closing yourself off to any opportunity or any relationship, you'll never know what it would have been, obviously. So it's not like you're going to miss something that you never knew you had, but you just never know what will come out of things. It's worth the effort sometimes.
I feel like you've had proof of concept after proof of concept throughout your whole journey. Like from being in the room saying, I can't, Sharon was it? Oh, that's Sharon, and you've been like, all right, cool. And then she's like, yeah, I'm the CEO. To then that happening, I think it's crazy, but really, really cool. I have to say, and it's proof of concept of everything and what you've done and what you've just said then. So yeah.
No, thanks.
So Ryan, Flat Out is already strong in brand partnerships and motorsport activations. Are you exploring new creative formats, tech integrations, or IP to evolve the agency model?
We're always looking at that. I think there's a lot of interactive stuff, a lot of app development things we're looking at with brands. Even on social media, how they do it now with different. Very low tech stuff can be done, but I think it's adapting to what's out there, and there's so many companies that are innovating, doing different things that you have to keep on top of those things because they're just different ways of engaging people. There's a lot of I said before about can't make hits, make noise. The flip side of that, there's a lot of noise out there, right? So how do you cut above that? And that goes beyond targeting audiences and being with certain paid campaigns, whatever. It goes about leverage different tools. Years ago, there was a product called, I think it was Litro camera. It was called. It was basically a blue cubed camera, and it was quite niche. It was a small little company, and they basically took a picture with it, and it took the picture at different focal lengths. So I would be in focus, the chair would be blurry, the sofa behind would be blurry, and then that image is uploaded onto your website, and the user on the website could click on maybe the sofa behind it, that would be in focus, I'd be blurry. So the user could then change the focal points. So it would capture the image different focal lengths. So it was just like a more interactive still image, basically. It wasn't a lot of money. That company was bought by Steve Jobs when he was at Apple, and they integrated that into iPhones which became portrait mode. So, but it's like, that technology I saw somewhere, I was like, that's really interesting, that's really cool. I got that, and we put it on our website where we had like a film set, we had a cameraman, and then it was like, well, who are they interviewing? It's like you couldn't see because they were blurry, and then the user clicks something, they could see it's someone, and then we're out of focus. So it was a way of engaging an audience. So those kind of technology tools are so valuable if used correctly. with a payoff, right? So the person, I think the person show was Yoko Ono, actually. Yoko Ono, we interviewed for a documentary, and we're there with the camera, and they're like, who's that? Oh, it's Yoko Ono. Oh, cool. There has to be some payoff for them that's interesting, not just like, oh, we don't know who that person is. But but it was a really unique thing. Small little camera, it's like $120 this camera, but they got bought by Apple, and obviously it went to what it is now. But so that was a while ago. But today again, there's more innovations coming out. That more app stuff you use, and it can make the process quicker. It can be more engaging. You can reach out to people. You can do polls on text messages now. All different things you can do. Just play around with it. Even with some friends, it's like almost, I hate to use this term, but like a safe space. But some friends, you can just try something else that's new, a new feature of the iOS 26, whatever. You can test it out with them and see what happens. And it's just like, have fun with it. I think people lose, as they get older, lose a lot of the childhood, a lot of the fun and the playness of childhood. And I think I'm always quite silly. I'm the first person to laugh at myself for the stupid things that I'll do. And that builds a rapport with people, but also, to me, it keeps me creative. So that obviously makes you more open to ideas and more exploratory in terms of techniques and tools. And you try it, and it doesn't always work. As long as it's not a direct, serious repercussion, like you have a serious deadline for a client, and if this isn't delivered by this date, they're screwed. And you risk it, this thing doesn't work out, and then it's like you've cost you money, and then it's a disaster. But when you have the moments where you can try it,
and definitely want to highlight what you said then about being playful, because that is when we're at our most creative as humans. When we're in that childlike mind and we're kind of like free and thinking like that. So I feel like for creativity, that is spot on.
It transcends so many different parts of your life. I was with my children in the UK recently, and they have night lights and things next to their bed. We're in Airbnb, and there wasn't a socket near the bed, right? So, and the bedtime's at 8 o'clock or something. And it's at 8:30, and it's the first day I got there. So I landed in the morning, and I got there, and I was like, and we got in this Airbnb, and everything closes in the small town I lived in Kent, and we were there, and they were like, their thing didn't plug in. Oh crap! I'm gonna get in trouble for this. Like, their iPad won't work, or their night light won't work to play their music. So I was like, okay, right, guys, put your coats on. So we'll go a little adventure. We're gonna go get a power strip, right? And they're like, okay, cool. So off we go down the high street. Everything's closed, right? There's like a Sainsbury's local, a Tesco local, didn't have a power strip. The nearest thing was like a Sainsbury's mega superstore, whatever, a supermarket that was either like 10-minute drive away. You could have got a taxi. But I was like, it's already now almost 9 o'clock. I thought, okay, how do we do this? Let me go into a hotel. I went to a hotel and just said to them, I think I'd stayed there once before. I was like, hi, I'm from here. Like, here's my driver's license. Like, I'm from Canterbury. It's Canterbury in Kent. And I said, from here, is there any chance, I'm here with my kids, we need a power strip. Is there any way you have one? I said, I can leave you my driver's license and like £100 cash. If I don't bring it back, then keep that. From someone they didn't know, they wouldn't go out of the way. So the only way I could see to build trust in that relationship is give them £100 for what is a £4 power strip. Right, so the worst case scenario for them is they have to buy a new power strip, but they've profited £96, right?
Exactly.
And she's like, she was hesitant at first, and then when I said that, she was like, let me go have a look. She went, and she came out with one. I was like, oh, thank you so much. I walked back and I went, Daddy, why did you pay £100 for that? I said, no, I didn't. I said, but she didn't know who I was, so even leaving my license, I can get a new license, whatever. It's not. What can she do with that? She can't do anything with it apart from like, well, I was silly. She's not going to go knock on the door or anything like that. I said, but I had to build trust with her, and she doesn't know me. We haven't got time to chat for a long time. The best way was to offer that. I said, I'm not going to. We're going to return it first thing in the morning. It's the first thing we're doing tomorrow morning is coming back here. Like we're not paying £100 for a power strip. I'll get a new one tomorrow. But of course. But it builds that trust and connection. So I was like, and again, I said to them, it isn't manipulation. It's just trying to get on the same page with someone to understand each other. And once you're on that same same level with someone, then you can communicate and you can collaborate and you can help each other out. And I was very grateful she helped out. And she, and then ultimately she said, keep the £100. It's fine. I know you'll come back. But just as I offered it, You know, so you
Yeah,
find that
yeah,
that playfulness,
yeah. No,
and that creativity, I find just pops up everywhere in my life. And it's like, oh, you know what, I could get there quicker with this.
yeah,
Let me try this. And people are like, but that was, well, why did you go all this way? I was like, yeah, but do you know what I discovered by doing? I discovered this thing, and now this thing's awesome. And so all these
yeah,
little things that are fascinating to find out by doing something different and just by thinking about it. It's been it can frustrate a lot of people in your life because they're like, where are you going? I just need to do something. And also, you know, the people stay in your life see the value in it and they know it's you, and it's never for anything negative. It's never for malicious things. It's always like that childish exploration in a way. So I think it's a valuable piece, and I try and keep it with my kids all the time. It's like, have fun, guys. Let's have fun. I said the best thing we do is just to have fun.
and definitely when with the £100 for the cable thing, like it's also like you've got to make
Right.
them trust you and realize how much you need this, but also,
Be responsible.
I'm not trying to rob you. So like
Yeah.
it's to put their psyche at ease. Yeah,
Because
do you know what I
I
mean?
said that to
So
the kids.
I
Like,
get that
put yourself,
completely.
and this is a thing I've done a lot. But just put yourself in their shoes. A gentleman's walked in with like three boys, whatever, and they're like 10 years old. Yeah, so it's like, but still, she doesn't know me. Right? It's late at night. I'm asking if she could leave her desk to go to see if there's a power strip. Like every probably part of her brain is saying no, 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 no. So it goes down to, I'll never get too close. I'll stand back. I'll be very polite, and my tone is very, very,
Yeah.
very, very thoughtful. However, you still have to recognise that that there is there's an expectation about this could be, there could be make people uncomfortable, and that wouldn't be productive for anyone. And also, I don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable. Beyond the goal of getting the power strip, it's
Yeah,
I don't want to
exactly.
make people uncomfortable. That's why I was like, okay, boys,
Yeah,
stand back a little
exactly.
bit. I'll chat to her for a second.
And like all them things go into it, your tone of voice, how you speak. Like I'm like like 6 foot covered in tattoos. So if I need to be in any sort of similar position as you, I need to be as
Yeah.
like non-confrontational looking, sounding as I can. And so like a lot of the time I vape now. I don't smoke,
Right.
but I'll have a pink vape
Yeah,
just
yeah,
because
yeah.
I know that disarms people straight away.
No,
You're
but
not thinking that I'm
it
any kind
softens
of, any
that
way
blow.
like that because I'm like, listen.
More approachable.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. So I agree with you. Yeah, more approachable, 100%. Right, Ryan, last two questions. Where do you want Flat Out to be in the next 12 to 18 months, both in terms of business growth and your role as
I
a
think for me,
creative
it's
director?
emerging technologies and kind of expanding them within organisations. I think the more, certainly after reading that AI 2027, integrating that into our workflow, automating a lot of processes that we can then deploy and we can scale without the traditional scaling model of having to open different offices and diluting kind of our creative IP. We can have automation through leveraging these tools. So for me, it's I'd like to still deliver the high quality, if not higher quality than we do now, with higher engagement. That's more more immersive and gives a stronger reaction from the people we're targeting, and that isn't necessarily just about selling the product that the client's paying me to sell, but something that makes their life, the end user, their lives better. And leveraging those tools without me having to put as much work in, so I can then spend more time either split between thinking of new ideas, new things to do, and also building close relationships with those that are important to me, and being present in people's lives, etc. So finding that balance a bit, and using the technology advancements as a tool for that, and also that empowering people on my team to step into roles and to push. And if they come to me and say, hey, look, I'd love to expand into basketball. I think there's a big opportunity in the NBA right now. I like, go for it, let's do it, and empower it, being in a position where I can then give them the tools and the support to do that, and then see them shine, and give them every reason to stay with me, to keep building that out. Not because I want to get their profit, but because it's the best environment for them to get the best out of themselves.
Definitely. And going back to the first point that you make, I think that's really sensible, and I feel like that's future-proofing, being able to work, and then it's going to pay dividends even further in the future, I feel
Exactly,
like.
definitely.
So last question, Brian. If you could wave a magic wand and remove just one friction point, either in your business or in business in general,
I
what
think
would
it
it
would
be
be
and why?
people's cynicism. I think people are cynical. I think people generally, when we're younger, we're more naive, right, in general, and then we get hurt, whether it's a business transaction or a relationship. People's the natural kind of psychology reaction to that is to, oh, I won't do that again. I'm not putting myself. I'm not going to open up as much as that again. And it's like, well, okay, so you're in this position, you're naive, whatever. This bad thing happened, and now you're in a worse place where you're not going to share who you are. Now you're going to close yourself off to things. It's like there could be something better out there that was just the wrong fit, and it went badly. Learn from it. But so that's the cynical route. Or you could go into more of a thing and say, okay, you know what? I know it could go bad. I know it could get hurt. I'm going to go for it anyway, right? Because I'm going to trust in this and go for it anyway. Bringing that to the business scape is like, when reaching out to certain people you don't know. So a brand, for example, that I may think of that I really want to work with, because I'll be like, what was it actually? There's an example yesterday. It was the helicopters and the US Open thing, right? So I reached out to the tennis guy that I know. I know the CEO of Blade Helicopters, which is a helicopter company in New York, and this was 3 days ago. And then yesterday, I saw an article, or was it a post on social media, and it was the helicopter company were promoting flights to the US Open. I was like, wow. So I was obviously in the same way. They've obviously been thinking and planning this for a long time. It's not something they thought of yesterday, right? Because it's a campaign or it's a business strategy. But it reminded me, I was in the right wavelength of thinking with this idea. So there are some brands that I currently feel like would be so good together to work together, right? But the more work you do and the more diverse your experience and the more different angles you can come in on, the more complicated a story is, therefore the less simplistic a message is, therefore the more investment they have to put into understanding your value and then think about how applying it to them. And as an example, like one thing, we're trying to get a timing sponsor for one of the go-kart facility, and we can approach them and say, hey, look, we want you to be the timing sponsor, or and do a whole deck on it, whatever. But then the other approach is go to them and say, hey, this is who we are. We're a lot of synergies with us. Let's have a 15-minute chat and explore some potential opportunities. One of which is the timing thing, but we don't have to say that, because if you just say the timing thing, that's all they think of, and they think, no, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, lock
so
on.
Not interested. As opposed to, actually, there could be a few ways we work together. Let's have a chat and see where it goes. But that's for me the value of working with a company like I've been working with in New York with the karting company is there are bricks and mortar, the physical location. It's not just someone with experienced ideas. It's something you can touch, feel, and rely on. So it has a trust element. So I think the biggest thing I'd like to change, the biggest thing that would be good is that it's some way that would build that trust, or have people be open to these opportunities without these skepticism or the cynicism that happens up, because there's a lot of people that do have, that try to take advantage or exploit. And that's also not just on the client side, but also on the freelance side. I've had some freelancers who worked in the past, and they've acted very, not hostile, but just very short, and they'll be like, okay, I need to be paid up straight away or something. It's like, yeah, no problem. But because they've been screwed over by somebody in the past, and it's like, and that sucks. That should never happen, whatever. But it does, and I understand why they think that way. But it's like, so removing as much of that as possible, as again, like the trust element we did with the power strip. That's a good way of doing it. Because I think so. In the next 5 years, that'd be, the more open people are, that's something that I think would be a big area, a big hurdle out the way to future growth. And the more you build your brand reputation and stuff, that obviously helps to a large degree. But yeah, openness to people you don't know, to work with new companies, and to people to be responsive to you and reply. The Blade CEO is a lovely guy, and he's open to these things. And it's rare to find that. So that's what I'd like to do. And for various reasons, because they've been screwed over in the past, or because they haven't got time in the day. But the end of it is, is getting through that hurdle of connecting with a company or a person that it would be so good to work together and make it happen, but then you can't get to them because of whatever reason. So eliminating those would be wonderful.
Yeah. I love that question because I get a different answer from every single founder, and I feel like it gives you an insight into, them and how they think. And like what you just said then, if they've been burnt before, that might make them be like, yeah, if you pay me right away. And it's funny how our past situations sort of shape us going forward, isn't it, as humans? So yeah, no, I feel like that's a
And
great,
it's
great
like
answer, and I'm all for that as well,
psychologically, the
100%.
way that our brains are wired. It's like, if we, I don't know, if you walk through some, I don't know, brambles or something, and you scratch your legs and it hurts,
Mm,
we're built to say, okay, well, stay away from them because they hurt. So, and I think
yeah.
what I think is very today. I think what I'm not a psychologist, obviously, I'm not a doctor, but I think what the mental health thing and a lot of people with anxiety and things today is that bad things happen to them, but they don't know why, and they don't know why. So they're like, but I've tried the best, and I don't know why like this has happened. If they knew why, they could then say, okay, I won't do that again. So the flip side, that's the flip side to someone treating you badly, and then you know that, okay, well, next time I'll make sure I have a contract in place, which may be more difficult to work with, but I won't get hurt again. I won't get taken advantage of again. And you can moderate that a bit, obviously, as I said, with the cynicism and understanding. But then I think the cause and effect thing, knowing that, okay, this thing happened, just why me again? I'm trying the best I can, but and this has happened,
Yeah.
and there's no real answer to it. But you can't always find that because the answer will be complex. So so you have to. So that part of our mind comes in to say, well, now we're unknown. It's that uncertainty again. It's that being comfortable with the uncomfortable that I said earlier. So the more you can build that and then be comfortable in yourself, I think helps a lot of those issues and those anxiety issues. In my personal experience, I'm not saying I'm advising them to people because again, I'm not a doctor.
No, definitely. Well, right, and I want to thank you for coming on. We've had a brilliant chat, and I think we've uncovered some loads of insights, like loads of things people can take away from this conversation. Where can my viewers and listeners contact you online?
Instagram, flat out. Actually, my Instagram, which is just Ryan underscore Kerrison, without the A's, it's RYN. But also then we have go flat out, go underscore flat out, or go to flatout.work, and all links are from there. And we're building that out actually to be have a lot more content and insights and podcasts over the next 6 months. We'll be building that out with a lot of stuff. More of a knowledge base is what we're kind of looking at to be like a hub base.
Hmm.
So, for example, I'd like to turn the tables and interview you for that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. 100%, definitely. Well, thank you for all my viewers and listeners,
So, thank
and
you
we'll
so much.
catch you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye, Ryan.